It was never supposed to be found. Hidden beneath the city, forgotten for decades, locked away for a reason. But secrets, they call back those who listen. And something was waiting. It doesn't tell stories, it bleeds them. Every page whispers, feeding on fear, on blood. The vanished always return. When the hour strikes, your name is erased. No records, no traces, only empty pages remain. The city has seen it before, and it will again.
But that was just the beginning. Now let's dive deeper into the full story. If you like this story, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also click the notification button for future uploads. The bell above the front door gave its usual tired jingle as Eliza turned the sign to closed. Tuesdays were always slow. A couple of students came in for Wi-Fi. One old man fell asleep in the reading chair by the window, and someone dropped off a cardboard box full of books without a word. She hadn't even seen who left it. Eliza dragged the box behind the front desk and sat on the floor to sort through it. Mostly junk, old romance paperbacks, a cookbook with greasy pages, a Bible with someone's name scratched off the front. She was halfway through when she picked up a hardback copy of Wuthering Heights that felt off. It was heavier than it should have been. And it rattled. She opened it. The inside had been sliced out, a clean rectangle carved into the pages like a hidden compartment. And inside that space was a small black notebook. No title, no name, just worn leather and a faint smell of dust and ink. She flipped it open. The first page was blank. The second one wasn't. Written on it was July 3rd, 1996. She screamed louder than I expected. I told her I was sorry. I buried her off the Sycamore Trail, near the third marker. It was fast. I think she knew it was coming. Eliza stared at the words for a long time. They didn't read like fiction. No flowery language, no suspenseful build-up. Just cold, direct matter of fact. She flipped to the next entry. August 14th, 1997. LP. Never looked back at me when I hit him. Just dropped. I checked for a pulse. Nothing. Rolled him into the river. They said it was an accident. I didn't mean for it to go that far. Her fingers trembled, just a little. She closed the book and looked around. The library was quiet. Too quiet. The kind where even breathing feels too loud. She stood up slowly, holding the journal like it might bite. Something about it didn't sit right. It wasn't just what it said, it was how it made her feel. Like she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to. She set it down on the desk and stared at it like it might move on its own. Outside, the sun was already dipping behind the trees. The town looked peaceful, normal. But this wasn't normal. Not even close. Eliza didn't open the journal again until she was home. Her apartment above the hardware store was quiet, save for the buzz of the fridge and the occasional creak of old floorboards. She made tea she didn't drink, left the lights off except for the one by the kitchen table. The journal sat there like it was waiting. She sat down, opened it again, and started reading. October 11th, 2006. Rachel M. had this laugh that made your head turn. Loud, too loud. You'd hear it before you saw her. I watched her walk home from school, always taking that shortcut by the old tennis courts. That day, she didn't make it past the tree line. She was wearing purple. It's still in the ground with her. Eliza felt the breath stall in her chest. Rachel Monroe. She hadn't thought about that name in years. 17, vanished after school one day. The whole town buzzed for weeks. Her photo taped to telephone poles, printed on milk cartons. The trail gone cold. Eliza pulled her laptop closer and typed the name. There it was. Local teens still missing after 3 weeks. Photo grainy, smile wide, hair pulled into a frizzy ponytail. Date, October 11th, 2006, exactly the same. She sat back staring at the screen. Could be a coincidence, she told herself. Maybe someone wrote this after reading old cases, a weird dark hobby. She flipped forward in the journal. More entries, more dates, some were detailed, others just a line or two. June 1st, 1982. Left him behind the auto shop. It wasn't personal. He was just the one who showed up. March 3rd, 1999. Nobody noticed. Not then. Maybe not ever. Each entry ended with the same 2 letters, JH. She closed the book. Her hands were cold. A knock on the ceiling. Her neighbor upstairs. Pipes groaning. Nothing out of the ordinary. But the stillness felt different now. Heavier. She glanced at the book again. Maybe it was fake, but if it wasn't, then someone in this town had been keeping score for decades. Eliza unlocked the library 15 minutes early the next morning. No one was waiting outside, but the air felt like it was holding its breath. She didn't flip the lights on right away. Just walked through the aisles, checking for anything out of place. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Like someone had cleaned up behind themselves. The donation box sat by the door, same as always. She opened it. Empty. She exhaled, slow. both relieved and disappointed. Then she slid the journal from her bag and tucked it under the counter. She hadn't planned to bring it back. She told herself she didn't even want it with her, but leaving it at home felt worse. At her desk, she opened the journal again. One entry had been sticking in her head all night. June 1st, 1982. Left him behind the auto shop. It wasn't personal. He was just the one who showed up. She pulled up the digitized local paper archive and typed in the date. It took some digging. Headlines were sparse that week, some graduation stories, a flood warning. Then, near the bottom of the third page, she found it. Man found dead behind Wilkins Auto. Authorities believe he slipped and struck his head on a pipe. No foul play suspected, no name listed. Eliza kept searching. She found a photo in another article, grainy and small. Just a man in a gas station uniform. No details, no follow-up stories. Just gone, with no one looking further. The journal hadn't named him, but the date matched. The location matched, and the tone, the quiet certainty of it, matched everything else. She sat back, staring at the screen. What kind of person writes this down? Morning, a voice said behind her. Eliza jumped. It was Mark, the part-time assistant who shelved the children's section. He had earbuds in and didn't notice her flinch. Didn't mean to scare you, he said, pulling them out. All good, she lied. You're early. He shrugged and walked off. She slipped the journal shut and tucked it under a stack of overdue notices. She kept her head down for the rest of the morning, but the entries stayed with her, not just the words, the feeling. Like she'd opened a door someone meant to keep shut. Later that afternoon, with the library nearly empty, she flipped to the back of the journal, just blank pages, until she noticed a folded one nearly stuck to the binding. She pulled it free, a list, just dates, no names, no explanations, but some of them were already crossed out. October 11th, 2006, crossed out. March 3rd, 1999, crossed out. April 22nd, 24th, 2025, still there. Unmarked. 3 days from now. She read it again, then again. Something was going to happen. Or someone was going to disappear. The date wouldn't leave her head. May 24th, 2025. She circled it in her planner, underlined it twice, and still checked it again an hour later, just to be sure she hadn't imagined it. 3 days to go. That night, instead of going straight home, Eliza stayed at the library after closing. She locked the doors, shut the blinds, and pulled the journal back out. She needed a name. Every entry ended with the same thing, 2 careful letters, written in the same hand, J.H. At first, it hadn't meant anything, but now that the dates were real, the initials felt like a signature, a stamp, or maybe a warning. She searched through the town's old newspaper archives again, this time narrowing by those initials. Obituaries, city council reports, library newsletters, school records, anything. Most of it was noise. Too many people with those letters in their name. Then, a mention in an old article from 1991. Judge Howard Hawthorne presides over. She blinked. The name was familiar. The Hawthorne family had been part of the town's history for decades. She remembered the courthouse had a plaque with the name on it. But she'd never met anyone from that branch. She clicked through more results, found another article, 1996. Same man, still serving, retired in 2001. Then, a photo, faded, black and white, but sharp enough to see the face, cold eyes, half a smile. She flipped back to the journal, staring at the initials again. J.H. Eliza felt a chill crawl up the back of her neck. It was probably just a coincidence, just someone with the same initials. It didn't mean anything. But the unease stuck with her as she packed up for the night. Outside, the wind had picked up. The street was empty. She crossed to her car, digging for her keys. Then she stopped. Something was tucked under her windshield wiper. A single sheet of paper. Torn, crumpled, damp at the edges. She pulled it free and turned it over. It was one of the pages from the journal, an entry she hadn't read yet. February 4th, 2010. She asked too many questions. She found something she shouldn't have. I waited until after dark, buried her near the water plant fence. I don't think anyone looked too hard. And at the bottom, J.H. Eliza's hands tightened around the page. Someone had been in the journal. Someone had taken a page out, and they knew she had it. Eliza didn't sleep. The journal sat on the kitchen counter all night, unopened but close enough to reach. The torn page lay beside it, smoothed out under the edge of a coffee mug like it might try to get away again. She waited until morning before deciding. If someone was watching her, they'd expect her to back off. She had no plans to. By 8 a.m., she'd already called out of work. Said she wasn't feeling well. Mark covered without asking questions. The water plant sat at the edge of town, tucked past the train tracks and behind a row of rusted trailers. No one ever went out there unless they had to. She parked on the shoulder, engine still running, then shut it off and listened. Nothing but birds and wind. The fence was tall and patched in places. Signs warned about high voltage and restricted access, but the back end sloped down into a ditch, overgrown with weeds. Eliza circled there, heart thudding. She didn't know what she expected. Bones? Evidence? Nothing? She crouched near the base of the fence and ran her hand over the earth, loose, softer than it should have been. She dug with a stick, then her hands. The dirt gave way faster than it should have. Then, plastic. A torn garbage bag, tied tight. Her stomach turned, but she kept going. Inside was a box. Wooden, old, no lock. She opened it. Not a body, not anything close. Photos, dozens. Black and white, Polaroids, a few yellowed by time. Some were portraits. Others looked like they'd been taken without permission. Through windows, from bushes, down hallways. And in the bottom corner of every single one, a set of initials. Tiny, careful, JH. She sifted through them until one made her stop. A woman, sitting at a desk. Short hair, glasses, librarian name tag. Eliza stared. She didn't recognize the face, but the name tag said Marla Jennings. She remembered that name, years ago. The woman who worked at the library before her, retired suddenly. Rumor said she just disappeared, left town, but no one had looked into it. Eliza's breath caught, because on the back of the photo, in the same stiff handwriting as the journal, were 5 words. She found the journal too. The box sat beside her. Eliza didn't look at it while she drove, but she could feel it there, watching. She took the long way back into town, past the lake, past the school. The wind rattled tree branches, scattering pollen and dead leaves across the road. Spring was supposed to be a relief. This year, it felt like camouflage. Back at the library, Mark was shelving books again. He waved when she walked in, earbuds in, clueless. She gave him a smile she didn't feel and locked herself in the small records room. Then she dumped everything out, journal, box, photos, notes, and started building a list. Rachel M., Marla Jennings. The man behind Wilkins Auto, 1982, LP and JH. She drew lines between them with a pen, trying to make sense of it. Victims, dates, witnesses, places. Most of the names she didn't recognize, but the initials, LP, kept coming back to her. She pulled out the journal and flipped back. August 14th, 1997, LP. Never looked back at me when I hit him, just dropped. I checked for a pulse. Nothing. Rolled him into the river. They said it was an accident. She typed the initials into the archive system. Nothing came up directly. Then she searched old obituaries for that month and year. There it was. Lauren Price, 23. Drowned in a boating accident. No suspicious circumstances reported. Family declined to comment. Eliza sat back. Not just a name. She flipped to the last page of the journal again. The date stared back at her. May 24th, 2025. 2 days now. Was someone else on that list? Someone new? She checked the other pages. Looked for anything out of place. That's when she saw it. A name. Scribbled in the margin beside an old entry. Not in the neat handwriting of the rest. Shaky, rushed, like it was added later. E. Langston. Her name. Eliza Langston. She stared at it, throat dry. Whoever added it hadn't meant for her to see it. Or maybe they did. Either way, she was on the list now. Eliza didn't drive home. Instead, she parked 3 blocks away from the county archive and sat there for 10 minutes, engine off, fingers clenched on the steering wheel. She didn't know why she remembered his name. Louis Brent, the town archivist. But Marla Jennings had mentioned him once in an old library newsletter. The one who remembers everything, she'd called him. The archive building looked like a forgotten bunker. No windows, one dented door, and a flickering sign. No one else was around. She stepped inside. The air was stale, like it hadn't moved in years. A bell sat on the counter. She didn't ring it at first, just stood there, unsure. The silence pressed in. She rang the bell once. Footsteps, slow, uneven. A man shuffled into view. Thin, 50s, maybe older. Pale skin, wireframe glasses. He squinted at her like the light hurt his eyes. "Can I help you?" he asked. "Are you Louis Brent?" He frowned. "Depends who's asking. Eliza Langston, from the town library." His eyes sharpened slightly, but he said nothing. "I'm looking into something," she said. "A journal that mentions people. Disappearances. A pattern. I think Marla Jennings found it once. Before she left." His expression didn't change, but he shifted on his feet, like the ground got less steady under him. "I don't know anything about that," he said, and turned like he was done. Eliza stepped forward. "Please, I think I'm on the list now." That stopped him. He turned back, slower this time. "Show me." She hesitated, then pulled the journal from her bag. His eyes locked on it. His face drained. He didn't take it. Just stared at it, like it was something toxic. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "It showed up in our donation box. No note, no name." He rubbed a hand over his face. "It wasn't supposed to come back." "You've seen it before?" He hesitated. Then softly, "Yes." He stepped aside and motioned her to follow. Not to an office. Downstairs. The basement was cramped and cold. Filing cabinets lined the walls, and a single desk lamp lit the center of the room. Marla brought it to me once, back in 2009. Said she didn't know what it was, but it felt wrong. She wanted someone else to see it just to know she wasn't crazy. "What did you tell her?" "I told her to burn it." Eliza blinked. "She didn't," he said. She kept reading, digging. She started finding names, connections. She thought she could stop it if she understood it. What happened? One day she didn't come into work, never picked up her last paycheck, no forwarding address. Her apartment was still full, keys on the counter, half a mug of tea in the sink. So she didn't just leave, no. He looked at her. She vanished, and that thing disappeared with her. Until now. Someone wrote my name in the journal. I found it 2 pages from the end, next to a date, May 24th, 2025. That's tomorrow. Lewis stared at her. His voice dropped. Then you need to understand something right now. You're not dealing with a man. You're dealing with a pattern. Someone who hides in time, not in places. Someone who doesn't want to be caught. They don't chase. They wait. Until you're alone, curious, tired enough to stop watching. She felt cold crawl up her spine. What do I do? He didn't answer at first. Then, you either leave town before tomorrow, or you stop being a name in a book and become the one writing it. Eliza didn't sleep. She didn't leave town either. She sat on the floor of her apartment, the journal in her lap, the box of photos beside her. The TV was off. Her phone was on silent. If the date in the book was right, if she was next, it would be tonight. She should have packed a bag, left. But something had shifted after what Lewis said. You either leave, or you become the one writing it. No one else had ever tried. Not really. They all vanished. Silenced. Erased. Left behind with no one asking enough questions. She wasn't leaving. So she started with the journal again. She made notes, cross-referenced dates with the local obits, found another name that wasn't in the book but matched the pattern. Thomas Baird, 1983. Died in a supposed break-in. No forced entry, no theft, no suspects. But Eliza found the address. She drove there just after sundown. A small brick house, still standing, now with a for sale sign and boarded windows. She parked down the block and walked. Quiet, careful. She ducked the gate and slipped into the backyard. Overgrown grass, a broken swing. The house smelled like mildew and rust. Inside, the place had been stripped. No furniture, no signs of life. Except one thing. On the wall in what had once been a bedroom, scratched deep into the paint. He watches, he waits, he writes. Her pulse spiked. Someone had left it behind. A warning, or a confession. As she backed away, her foot hit something. A tile was loose on the floor. She knelt, pried it up, and found a small gap in the boards beneath. Inside, a leather-bound notebook, dust-covered, brittle. She opened it. It wasn't the same as the journal. This one was scattered, drawings, half-sentences, paranoid scrawls. But one thing caught her eye. A page torn from a newspaper, taped inside. Howard Hawthorne elected to city council, 1971. Same cold eyes, same half-smile. In the margin, underlined 3 times, JH. She flipped through more pages, found a crude family tree, crossed out names, dated entries going back to the 1950s. This didn't start with one man. It wasn't just Hawthorne, it was a legacy. She read until her eyes ached. The notebook she'd found in the floorboards wasn't like the journal. It wasn't calm or careful. It was panicked. Scratched handwriting, smudged ink, entire pages crossed out or blacked over. It looked like someone had written it in fear of being followed. Maybe they had been. But buried in the chaos, Eliza found something solid. Names. 4 of them. First and last written in the same pen, same ink. Labeled, the one who saw it too. She copied them into her own notes. One was crossed out, Marla Jennings. 2 others were unfamiliar. The 4th gave her pause. Thomas Wells, 88 Sycamore Lane. She'd passed that street 100 times. It wasn't far. The journal still sat in her bag. The original one. And now, it felt heavier. Not like a book, like a threat. She didn't waste time. It was past 10 p.m., but she went anyway. 88 Sycamore Lane was a 2-story house, with chipped white paint and a porch light flickering like it couldn't make up its mind. A car sat out front, half covered in pine needles. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again. This time, footsteps, slow, hesitant. The door cracked open. An old man peered out, white hair, thin face, one eye milky with a cataract. What? Eliza Langston, she said. I think you knew Marla Jennings. I found your name in something she left behind. His expression didn't change, but he opened the door wider. Get in before someone sees you. She stepped inside. The living room looked like it hadn't been cleaned in a year. Papers stacked high, blinds shut, ashtrays full. A radio murmured from the kitchen. Old jazz. You read it, he said flatly. The book. I didn't mean to. I found it in a donation bin. They always show up that way, he muttered. Passed along, never directly, like it knows who's ready for it. You've seen it before? I wrote in it, he said, voice dry. 1 entry, long time ago. Eliza froze. You're JH. He gave a bitter laugh. God, no. That's not a person. That's a title. Whoever holds the pen signs the same way. I was told to. Like the others before me. She sat down. You were forced? No. That's the trick. You start thinking you're documenting something for justice, that writing it down makes it matter, that you're in control. He leaned closer. But the book's already written. You're just catching up. Then why are people dying? He didn't answer for a long time. Then he said, because some names aren't meant to be read, and once you do, it looks back. Eliza opened her bag and placed the journal on the table. He stared at it. Then quietly, you don't have much time left. She left the house at midnight. Thomas Wells hadn't said goodbye. He just went quiet after those last words and stared at the journal like it might catch fire. Eliza didn't press him. She got in her car and drove. The streets were empty. Not just quiet, empty. Not a single car, no lights in windows. Just the faint hum of street lamps and the ticking of the engine as she parked outside her apartment. She didn't go inside. She sat in the car with the engine off, journal in her lap. Her name still sat beside tomorrow's date in the back of the book. She'd checked it 10 times. 1 day left. She tried to tell herself it didn't mean anything, that this was still just a twisted coincidence. But deep down, she already knew the pattern was real. People disappeared, not all at once, not always clean, but they vanished, and the town forgot, and now she was next. She opened the book one last time, flipped to a blank page, took out a pen, and wrote, May 24th, 2025. If this is the end, let it be written in my own hand. My name is Eliza Langston. I am not afraid of what comes next. She closed it. She didn't sleep that night. She watched the sun rise from her kitchen window, the journal still resting on the table. Then her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She answered. A voice whispered, You shouldn't have written. Click. The line went dead, and in front of her, the journal flipped open on its own, its pages rustling like wind through dry leaves. It landed on the last page. Her name was gone, replaced by someone else's, Mark Dalton, the part-time assistant. Eliza stared at the page. Mark Dalton. His name had appeared where hers had been. Same handwriting, same spacing, as if it had always been there. May 24th, 2025 was still there, still uncrossed. But her name, gone. She picked up the pen. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrote on the same page again. What happened to me? She waited. Nothing. No shift, no reaction. Until the words slowly began to fade, sinking into the paper like spilled water soaking into cloth. The journal went still again. She grabbed her coat and keys. It was just after 8 a.m. when she got to the library. The front door was already unlocked. That was wrong. Mark wasn't supposed to be in this early. She stepped inside. Mark? She called out. No answer. The lights were on. The donation bin had been moved. She walked past the desk, past the computers. Then she saw it. The journal, her copy, was lying open on the children's story rug, just sitting there. She hadn't brought it with her. She picked it up. Same leather, same worn edges. But this one was different. It had more pages. She flipped through. Some entries she recognized, others were new. Then she saw the newest one. May 24th, 2025. Mark Dalton didn't know what he'd found. He just opened the bin. That's all it took. Curiosity is always the first cut. He'll be missed if anyone remembers he was here. Eliza's breath caught. She ran to the back, to the shelving section. Mark's cart was still there. His jacket hung on the chair, but Mark was gone. No note, no bag, nothing. She checked the security feed. Nothing after 7:02 a.m. The footage just ended. She stood in the break room, journal in hand, heart pounding. The building felt off, too quiet, like something had been here before her and took only what it wanted. Then she looked down at the journal. Another new page. This one was blank except for a line across the top. Would you rather disappear or be remembered for what you did next? Eliza left the library without telling anyone what happened. She wanted to scream, to run, to make someone see what she was seeing. But she already knew what would happen. The footage was gone. The records were gone. Mark was gone. And the journal had changed. It wasn't just documenting. It was deciding. She needed answers. Real ones. So she went to the only place in town older than the archive, the records vault beneath City Hall. The public didn't know it existed, but librarians did. It was where the original deeds, death notices, town ledgers, and survey maps were stored, pre-digital, forgotten unless you knew to ask. She didn't ask. She used the side door, the one the janitor left propped open on lunch breaks, down 2 flights of stairs, through a rusted gate, into silence. The vault smelled like rotting paper and old heat. She pulled on gloves and turned on the overhead light, just one buzzing bulb. Shelves lined the walls. No labels. No order. 1,000 years of lost names and fading ink. She started with the ledger books, town records, 1890 to present, mayors, judges, coroners. Eliza flipped through them, scanning for the initials JH. Nothing stood out until she hit the year 1912. One name was listed again and again in the margins, always beside abrupt deaths or accidental disappearances. Jonas Halbridge, coroner, part-time deputy. She'd never heard of him, but next to his name were faint pencil notes, barely legible, some marked with symbols. Spirals. Sharp, jagged spirals. She turned the page and froze. Taped inside the ledger was a photo. A man standing beside an open grave. A woman in front of him, writing in a notebook. The date, August 2nd, 1912. The same journal sat in her hands now, only newer, cleaner. No mistaking it. Someone had been writing in it for over a century. She turned the page. Underneath the photo, scrawled in faded ink, "We only hold the pen. The book writes itself." Eliza didn't remember leaving the vault. 1 minute she was staring at the photo, heart pounding. The next, she was standing outside in the parking lot, sunlight stabbing her eyes, the journal pressed tight against her chest. She checked her phone. 2 hours had passed. She hadn't spoken, hadn't moved. She didn't even remember walking up the stairs. She drove home in silence. That night she laid the journal on her kitchen table and stared at it. It wasn't just a book. It wasn't just a diary of murders. It was something else. Something that wrote through people, using them, discarding them, passing on the pen like an infection. Jonas Halbridge, Thomas Wells, Marla Jennings, Mark, her. They all tried to understand it. None of them stopped it. She opened the book and turned to the first page again. Except, the first page was no longer blank. There was something written now. "You're the first to get this far. That's why it chose you. Keep writing, Eliza." She slammed the book shut and stepped away. Her heart was racing, her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from anger. The journal was watching her, responding. It wasn't just collecting names, it was shaping the story, choosing the ending, and it had just given her permission to continue. No, not permission. Instructions. She sat back down and opened it again, fast this time, like ripping off a bandage. "Keep writing, Eliza." She turned the page. "You already know what to do next." And beneath that, "He's waiting." She stared at the words. And just below them, as if the page had been burned from the inside out, 3 letters appeared slowly, like ink seeping up through the paper. J.H. She slept with the journal on the kitchen table, lights on, doors locked, a hammer beside her bed. She didn't sleep much. By morning, the message on the page was gone. So was the name. Mark Dalton's entry no longer existed. No page, no ink, no trace. It was like the book had rewritten itself to keep up the lie. But Eliza remembered. And that meant something was slipping. She spent the next day cross-referencing every variation of the initials J.H. in the county's history. She dug through digitized census reports, old family names, hand-scanned graveyard registries. Most were dead. A few had disappeared. But one line kept coming up. The Halbridge family. It went back far. Pre-town founding, farmsteads, private land. One branch changed its name in the 1950s. Another vanished in the 70s. But the land still existed. Halbridge Hollow, a forest preserve 5 miles outside of town. Nobody called it that anymore. It had been renamed Mill Creek Nature Area after a grant 20 years ago. No one really went there. She printed the old maps. On the oldest one, 1913, there was a small cabin marked deep in the woods. Owned by J. Halbridge. There was no modern record of it. She packed a flashlight, water, notebook, her phone, and, against every instinct, she brought the journal. Not to protect it, to end it. The trail into the woods was overgrown and half erased. No signs, just fading footprints and deer paths. Her boots crunched dead leaves. Birds fled when she got too close. Wind hissed through the trees like it didn't want her there. After 30 minutes the woods went quiet. Then she saw it. A cabin, collapsing inward, roof sagging, door cracked open like a mouth stuck mid-word. She stepped inside. Dust, rot, a fireplace choked with ashes, and a desk. Still standing. On top of the desk sat a book, not her journal, another one. Identical binding, same leather. She picked it up. The first page was filled, not in ink, but in blood-colored strokes. Dried, old, but still legible. Every watcher leaves a mark. Every mark becomes a story. Every story needs a name. J.H. Eliza turned the page. Her name was already there. Not handwritten, printed, as if the book had been waiting for her all along. She flipped forward. The next page was blank, then another, and another, then a single sentence near the center of the book. "You were always going to find me." She stared at it. "No," she said out loud. "I wasn't supposed to be here." Another sentence faded in below it, like heat drawing words through frost. "That's what they all say." She slammed the book shut. There was a creaking behind her. She turned, fast, nothing. Just the wind pushing against the broken cabin walls. But it felt wrong. Like the walls weren't holding things out. They were holding something in. She searched the rest of the cabin, closets, floorboards, under the desk. No footprints, no tools, no food, just dust and decay. And in the back corner of the room, a mirror, old, cracked, almost black from tarnish. She moved toward it. Not because she wanted to, but because the silence leaned that way. In the mirror, her reflection flickered. Not once, not like a trick of light. It blinked, then smiled. But she hadn't. Eliza stepped back, heart pounding. Her reflection remained still, then slowly raised its hand and pressed a single finger to the mirror. A smear formed. 3 letters, fogged into the glass. J.H. Eliza ran. She didn't stop until she reached her car. Her lungs burned. Her hands shook as she unlocked the door. She threw the journal into the passenger seat. It landed open. New words had appeared. You ran, Eliza. You weren't supposed to run. Now someone else pays for your fear. She looked up. At the road, at the trees. The silence around her wasn't just quiet anymore. It was expectant. And back on the page, another name began to write itself, letter by letter. Louis Brent, the archivist.